she felt her calling was really a journalist. And I think that's, in a sense, what gave her, like, even with that matter of if the whole thing was to shut down and had to start all over again, if the federal government closed it down, that she knew that her trade was a journalist, and that's what she would do. And she had surety of that, if she had talent. But to see her at the typewriter, and the sort of things that she wrote were not things that you just dashed off, because so often what she wrote was really a meditation on the times in which we were living, but she always wove it together with individuals that were either living in the house that she'd met or people she'd met on her journeys. And she, of course, her journeys allowed her to bring in all sorts of information of small efforts at improving the common good, whether it was in Mississippi or if it was in Wisconsin or whatever it was. And so she would tie all these things together.
But she was also a down-to-earth, practical, you might say, labor historian and labor reporter. And she went out to Michigan and went to Flint at the sit-down strike, and climbed through the window to talk directly to the... She was very good at that, and it's the best kind of reporting, hands-on, right at the scene.
Well, we entered a draft board very briefly in Catonsville, Maryland, and that was May of '68. And we took these A1 files out into a parking lot so nobody would be hurt, or we didn't want a fire in the building. And we ignited them with homemade napalm, which we had discovered in a Special Forces handbook. Evidently, no American warrior should ever be without his napalm. Well, we were tried. Dorothy came to our trial in October of '68, and she gave a very beautiful, powerful endorsement of us in a evening session that we held in a Jesuit church down there in Baltimore. And she made a careful distinction, as she would. She said, in effect, that this would not be the way of the Catholic worker, but that she blessed our way, because it was nonviolent and because we stood by and took the consequences, and she felt we were in the classical realm and the path of Gandhi and of Dr. King, and that it was a good way.
After I stopped editing the paper, I flew out almost directly to Colorado to take part in a demonstration at a nuclear facility called Rocky Flats, where they produce all of the triggers for thermonuclear weapons. And there was a protest there ongoing on the railroad tracks leading into this plant. And a couple of us from the Catholic Worker flew out there and took part in this, sitting on these railroad tracks out in the snow with these trains, carrying all this, radioactive material and whatnot. So we went out there, and I was arrested and ended up spending 16 days in jail, in this county jail, most of it in solitary confinement, fasting the whole time. I was sustained by the feeling that I was serving the cause and that I had a community back home that was supporting me and praying for me. But it was very nice still to get a card from Dorothy while I was there fasting in jail, with a picture of Cape Cod. I don't know why she would, where she would get these cards, or would she go to a store and pick out a card of Cape Cod, or I don't know what. But Dorothy's, all her wall was surrounded by photographs and pictures of just beautiful things, flowers or some mountain or something like that. There was a card that might look trite otherwise, but for her it was like an icon or something. Beautiful thing, a picture of Cape Cod that says, "Dear Bob." She called me Bob. I don't know why. I'm otherwise Robert. But hope this card refreshes you and does not tantalize you. We all love you and hold you in our prayers. Dan Mock, who was the editor of the paper, will feature you first page in CW, Love in Christ, Dorothy Day. So that was, taped that up on the wall of my jail cell and felt connected to Dorothy, refreshed, not tantalized.
I was very slowly coming to some understanding of the horror of this, slaughter that we've been engaged in since I guess, Cain and Abel. And I was getting no help with this kind of moral understanding. And in fact, as I got closer to Dorothy, I was sort of, some of the older Jesuits were kind of sniffing up their nose and saying, in effect, in fact, one of them did say to me, well, she's very great, as long as she's on her turf. And her turf was the Lower East Side. She was disposable there. But she was off her turf, both as a woman and a non-specialist, when she was saying, no more war. And in fact, it got very close to some of these birds, because some of these Jesuits, they looked on these so-called complicated questions as their turf. Do you see what I mean? And she was kind of pushing. And they would look skyward past my left shoulder and say, well, it's a very complicated question. And to Dorothy, it was a very simple question. You don't kill one another, period.